if you were a Chinese citizen, you went to DeepSeek and said, tell me about the Chinese atrocities in history, you're not going to get an answer. Right? Like, you're just not going to get an answer. You may have somebody knocking at your door, literally. that's what may happen.
Welcome to the Up Your Average podcast, where Keith and Doug give no-nonsense advice to level up your life. So buckle up and listen closely to Up Your Average.
Welcome everybody to the Up Your Average podcast. We are glad that you are here, and I'm working remotely today. I'm back in my office, which it's been a fun week to work remotely. It's kind of giving me COVID flashbacks in several ways, but I am just so thankful to be here with you guys today, and we've got Keith and Caleb joining us. Keith and Caleb are doing some tech work right now, trying to figure out how to turn their camera on. But for you who are driving, you don't give a rip about that because you just want to hear their lovely voices. Am I right?
And we are here, Doug. We just can't be seen. Sometimes that's better. It reminds me of the COVID days where people would put like a fake picture up and they would wear their pajamas to the office kind of thing. You remember those days?
Yeah, I sure do. I'm really glad that we're not living in those days. The restrictions in life, I just hated those. And so glad to be free. Glad everybody has joined today. Thanks for joining us live, for those of you who tune in live. And it's always good to see you regulars on the Up Your Average podcast. Keith, we've been doing these for a long time. And what was it? 2020 is around then is where we started, maybe 2019. But our first one would have been 5 years maybe before that. We were on the back patio of Gimbel's building off Lantern Road, and we recorded a market update video or something like that. And I remember it was just disastrous. Like, we had wind noise. We didn't know what we were doing, but we still did it. And so if there's something that someone is thinking about doing today, that's maybe your first crack at something, maybe you don't have all the right tools, whatever it is, just want to encourage you to jump in and do it. And you might thank yourself later. So
we're gonna come right back to you, Doug. We're gonna see if hitting the reset button works.
That works for me. The topic of today that we wanted to focus on was talking about truth and AI. And AI is something that has really made the market news this past Monday. I was getting some messages from my friends like, hey, we're praying for you as the stock market opens on Monday. And it was just not looking good. One of the things I do is I wake up early and I check the futures of the stock market. And the stock market futures were not looking good on Monday. And I thought, what in the world changed from Sunday night to now? And it was news of a company that I had never heard of. Maybe you had heard of it, but DeepSeek. And DeepSeek is an AI platform that is China-based. And they have an ability, supposedly, to do things cheaper. And that's the beauty of capitalism. That's the beauty of free markets. Is with free markets comes competition, and there is somebody who is inevitably going to be able to take a platform and do it cheaper. Now, I don't know if that creates the best value. There's a lot of things that are cheaper out there. You could buy off-brand soda. I don't know if it's as good as a Coke. So just because it's cheaper doesn't necessarily make it better. But the stock market opened up on Monday, and it had just gotten its clock cleaned. One of the darlings of the stock market, NVIDIA stock just was getting hammered on Monday morning. And what we took that as the market was giving us this great information dump. And it was wonderful, just a download of information about how it's handling a newcomer. And what we started to see was there were several areas of the marketplace that maybe hadn't shined as well as an NVIDIA or several semiconductor stocks. Some of the areas that are a little bit more normal consumer spends, like, you know, the Walmarts of the world, or just anything that you would use your hard-earned money on each month. You know, those types of staples started to look good and be attractive. But it all happened because there was a shift in the AI market. I think the AI market is here to stay. And all the AI market is, to me, is it's the ability to access a lot of information. Anything that my curious brain could dream up, I could ask a question. I could dive into a subject matter. I could go deep. I could stay servicey. But it is something that allows me to really hone in on some answers. And so AI allows us to do that at the speed of light. I mean, imagine if we could have gone into the public library that you went into years ago, and you were able to just walk up to the front counter, ask your question, and then boom, the librarian, it has all these books and magazine articles and newspaper articles ready for you right there in the moment. I mean, what customer service that would have been. And so AI allows us to have that kind of experience at our fingertips. And it's here to stay. It's a wonderful tool. It helped me out tremendously this week. I had made an error and I needed to fix it, and I needed to figure out how to fix it. And not only did AI help give me the answers, but it provided even the forms that I needed to use. Now, none of that would have been possible had I not known the right questions to ask. So you have to be able to start with some level of truth in order to have AI be an effective tool for you. And that truth is in the eye of the question asker.
I think truth is the most important part of it, Doug, is that I because we were logged out there, I think that essentially all that AI is at this point, from what most people know, is it's a very rapid database that it takes a query, a question, and then accesses information in a very rapid pace. And so each AI organization is writing their own database. And in that database, when you query something, it has these little places out there that give you the answers, and they're able to search it really fast. And so whatever they say the truth is about that answer then becomes the truth that people know, if that makes sense. And so what I think is really critical about AI is that it may not be true.
AI itself may not be true?
Well, what you ask may not give you a true answer. And so that's why truth becomes a really big deal. An idea that I was listening to yesterday, so it's just like your kids. AI is being trained. So whatever you train your kids is going into their memory, right? And so that's how they know, is how they're trained. Well, AI is being trained in 2020 to 2025. And the information that they have in 2025 becomes the truth that may affect the answers for the next 100 years. It depends on how they're trained. And so the training of AI really gets to a deep philosophical thing. And so the idea of AI and truth is that we had I didn't hear you kicked off on this, but the thing that jolted the markets the beginning of the week was the Chinese version called DeepSeek, which to me, it's kind of a funny name. What would you deeply seek? And I would think you want to seek the truth so you know what's true in life. And so I thought that's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. And one of the beauties of it though is it's nothing new. Like there's been a lot of information out there that you could have gone to the library and read books and based your assumptions on life. And those books may not have been true either. And so it's just information, and it's up to the person to discern how they're going to use it and what they're going to do. But it is always growing, just because maybe there's something out there, a form that you might need, or a process you might need, or a technology that you might need that doesn't exist today. But when you're using AI 5 years from now, you will be benefiting from that, whatever it is. So it grows along with us. And I think that's just tremendously exciting. The three of us got to take a ride in a Tesla a couple of weeks ago, and we summoned that Tesla with our friend's cell phone. And so that type of newness allows us to grow with it and then experience reality.
So there's, I was wanting Caleb's feedback on this because I was having some challenges with my technology yesterday, and my tech guru who was helping me was talking about different aspects of life and how sometimes people don't want to troubleshoot. They just want the solution, right? They don't want to actually figure out what the problem is. They'll just put a bandage on things. And so I was telling him that one of the things that for me is a big deal is I realized that in my 20s that I was given a passion in life, like that whatever I chased after with the days that I have on the planet was going to require some curiosity on my part. And I think that's true for everybody. There's a void in the midst of our soul that is driving us forward. And in that, I was in a very high-paying job with great opportunities, but that void was not filled in my soul. And working in the high-tech industry back in the 80s, I realized that I had to keep up with technology to excel. And I saw the velocity of technology, and I'm like, I don't know if I can go home at night and study this. Like, I don't know if I'm that passionate about it. And then, so I got into something I was passionate about, but to make it, to survive as a financial advisor, I had to teach classes at Indiana Wesleyan to pay my rent. And one of the classes I taught was a introduction to computers classes. And one of the things people had was technophobia, a fear of technology. And I think that is true always. And so I'd asked Caleb about if he was familiar with the Luddites. You remember the Luddites, Doug?
No.
Tell us a little bit what you figured out about the Luddites, Caleb.
Yeah, from what I found, it's a group of people over in England during the Industrial Revolution, so probably the early 1800s, and they were scared about the technology advances, especially with the textile factories. So they would go in with masks at night and try to destroy as much of the new machines and technology that they can to try to either keep their job or what they thought would take over for them.
Don't you see that with most technology, that the idea of the Luddites is probably true? Like I know for me, the temptation for me is that, AI is going to do away with my job, right? Like, and I don't think that's ever changed, whether it's robots and you worked in a factory or whatever. There's always that fear about the unknown.
In 2018, we had this conversation. In 2018, we were talking about AI. We really didn't know what we were talking about, but we were talking about this, that there are going to be systems and processes through computing that would basically be a great stockbroker for you. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, is my profession going away? And we had hashed this out over our orange board. And I remember walking away not feeling great. But then with some time, and it wasn't like the next day. It was with some time and with some understanding of basically what's going on with this high speed composition of data. What does this really look like? And I just think what a wonderful tool it can be for the creative mind, for the person who's willing to step out and take some risk. Maybe you don't even embrace it. I don't know. But someone who's willing to say, look, my value is in the unique creativity within the brain waves between my ears, not the strokes of my keyboard.
Yeah, I think one of our key kind of principles is to buy wisdom, and wisdom, in my view, is the ability to see life from a godly perspective, and the idea that a computer could give you wisdom, I don't think that's going to happen in your lifetime. I think all a computer is going to be able to do is give you information, and that information may or may not even be right. And that's where wisdom has the ability to sift through. Is this right or is it not right? And I think that's a big deal. I would imagine that Caleb is much more willing to jump into technology, say, than I am. And like, when you look at technology, does it scare you at all, Caleb, or do you just look at it as an opportunity?
I see it as an opportunity. I feel like you guys were a lot more apt to get into the AI. Like, it took me probably sometime last year to even like test it out, just because I didn't really feel like I needed it for school and just my everyday life. I didn't see how it would help me, but it does. What you guys were talking about, it's a big database and it helps get information to you quickly. It's just a matter, like Doug, you said, discerning what's true and what's not. And you still had to do that just like with Google searches. Like in school, we had probably several years in my English classes. You have to learn to find good sources and to be able to figure out how those are good sources and whatnot. And I feel like that's even more true with AI as well. Because me and my dad we asked AI something either earlier this week or last week, and like I pointed something out and I was like, that just doesn't look right. So we either had to ask more questions or go somewhere else and see if that was correct or not.
This week, I asked a few of our accountant friends pretty complex questions, and ran it past three of them, and one had seen this before. The question I was looking to address. And so one of my favorite things to do with AI, no matter how difficult or how light, how complex the question might be, I like to ask Gronk, ChatGPT, and Perplexity this exact same question. Boy, do I have a lot of time on my hands. And it's great because you can take some feedback and then formulate your own thoughts around it.
Well, that's why when I threw out the topic, because you've got artificial intelligence, right? Like it's not real intelligence. It's not artificial.
It's just a bunch of data.
Yeah. I just see, electrons flying through the air and connecting to massive databases out there. And really, probably if you've not read 1984, you might read it, because whoever controls the decision of what's true out there in the artificial intelligence is going to give a version of the truth. And so that's why, like, if you can have multiple sources of AI, you can cross-reference them to see who's telling you the truth, because they can censor what information you have. I'm sure I was listening a little bit about the Chinese DeepSeek. Like if you were a Chinese citizen, you went to DeepSeek and said, tell me about the Chinese atrocities in history, you're not going to get an answer. Right? Like, you're just not going to get an answer.
I think they'll say it's out.
Yeah, or you may have somebody knocking at your door, literally. That's what may happen. And so And we had Zuckerberg come out recently and say that he was censoring information in the past. And so with AI, that's going to be a challenge for people. And so then how do you go forward and use it as a tool and see things? And I think it's a big deal. It helps me all the time when I'm trying to kind of jumpstart my thought processes on something. I can ask it some questions and it'll do some amazing things. And I was listening to the podcaster Scott Adams the other day, and his opinion was that he doesn't see how Amazon will stay in business with AI, because AI you can ask it, where's the best place to buy this product, which doesn't have to be Amazon anymore. And the only advantage Amazon has right now is they have a big shipping force. But they're running people out of business, and they're taking probably 30% of your profits, right? Like that's what they're charging people. And if you can market yourself independent of Amazon, regain that 30%, then you can ship it yourself without having to go through Amazon. So the possibilities of AI are unbelievable. And they open up doors that make you competitive in ways that people never even thought of before. Like you would, I think we have a mutual friend that Amazon kind of ran out of business. Well, maybe AI will run Amazon out of business, which to me as a capitalist makes me smile. I like to think that competition is out there. We just have to decide whether we're going to embrace it and use wisdom, which is really scarce. I think wisdom's really scarce. And so that's the approach I think you have to think about it. Is it's a tool. How are you going to use it?
A couple of weeks ago, Caleb and I on this podcast we referenced Cal Fussman, our good friend Cal Fussman. And Cal Fussman has a podcast, Big Questions with Cal Fussman. He's great. If you're looking for an encouraging word, check him out. But Cal Fussman regularly talks about AI. And recently he talked about how he used it to find his own research. Articles that he had written in Esquire magazine under This Is What I Learned column. And specifically, he was talking about how he could understand the motives behind President Trump. And he looked back to his articles that he had written and interviewed about Trump in the 80s to help him understand. And so no longer do you have to have that file cabinet underneath your desk with all your great notes because it's out there. There's stuff that's already out there, even about yourselves. And so there's a lot to embrace. There's a lot to learn and say, hey, how can I use this tool to effectively help me be a better human being today or help other people? And I just love how Cal Fussman is embracing it.
I think any kind of new technology can create anxiety for people. I think that's just the way it goes, particularly if the technology is affecting your particular role. So the automobile, I think, probably created some anxiety for blacksmiths. So if I'm used to putting a horseshoe on a horse, it can create some anxiety, and maybe the wisdom we need is it correct anxiety? Do I need to go become a mechanic instead of a blacksmith, right? Like the need for blacksmiths went down dramatically. And so any kind of technology is going to do that sort of thing. It's going to create some anxiety for different people. One of the thoughts with AI that really struck me when I was pondering it this week is an author. Where does your copyright bleed off into the world? Like we interviewed our friend Mitch Anthony the other day. And if you were to go on most AIs and ask it about Mitch Anthony, it probably will summarize his book. So his book has a copyright, but AI can actually summarize it, which I don't know how they do that without violating his copyright. But then who even protects that person? So there's all kinds of crazy things that are going on with the technology. But I think my goal, like talking about it today, is to encourage people not to be afraid of change, to embrace it, but to realize that wisdom and truth are going to override whatever technology that you have.
Well, that's a good word.
Doug, it's always good seeing you.
You guys have a great weekend.
Well, you do the same, and we'll talk to you all next week.